Hi, everybody, and welcome to the September edition of AI Horizons. So we are back from a summer hiatus, and we will be meeting monthly now through the fall semester and through the spring semester. So we have a pretty packed agenda today. And before we get started, I have two quick announcements. So I'm going to share my screen just to share these announcements. Okay, so the first announcement is if you or anybody that you know in your college, department, Commonwealth campus has an idea that you think would be great to share at AI Horizons, we have what we are calling the AI Horizons Idea Vault. And I will drop the link to this in chat. So we shared this in the Teamspace community, but if you missed it, please submit your idea if you want to share in an upcoming future AI Horizons. And then the second announcement is just a reminder that we capture our monthly agendas here in the TLT AI Horizons agendas. You can find this document pinned to the Teamspace. If you just click files, it should be pinned right to the top. So we have the next two agendas already set. And then here is today's agenda, as well as all of the previous agendas and meeting recordings are saved in this document. So this is a great resource that you can jump back to. You can share it with colleagues and save it for yourself. Okay, so now we're going to jump into our official agenda for today, which the first half of today is going to be just covering what's new with AI at Penn State. We have 5 quick lightning announcements from 5 different folks, and I will be covering the first one, which is our new Dreamery Experiences. So I apologize, I'm looking at my camera and then looking at the big camera in the room, so I'll be switching back and forth. But we have 3 new Dreamery Experiences, but 2 of those are AI ones. And we had an article come out in Penn State today, if you saw this. If you didn't see this, I'm going to talk about them here today. Our 2 new ones are the AI Artist Lab and Can AI Play? And these are already being booked by faculty at Penn State. And when they book those experiences, they bring their classes here to the space in the Dreamery. In the AI Artist Lab, students will create a hit single right now we're using Suno, but that music AI app could change. And then once they create a hit single, they create an artist and album artwork, and then they kind of make a video with everything together. So that is a facilitated experience where we walk students through that. And our other Dreamery experience that we have is Can AI Play? And that one has been popular. Some of you may have gone through the first iteration of this at Make It last spring, but we have since transformed that into a student experience. And just yesterday, we had a class in here doing Can AI Play? And I want to share 2 of those creations with you. It was very hard just to pick 2 game boards that they created. But within Can AI Play, before I talk about these experiences, students are tasked with creating or mashing up a childhood classic board game and adding at least 1 new element, sometimes 2 or 3 new elements. And this is usually done within 30 to 45 minutes, so it's a design sprint, right? It's very hectic, very quick. And students are using either ChatGPT or Copilot. It is up to them. And they work in small groups of 3 to 4. And they have this iterative conversation back and forth with ChatGPT or Copilot and making this board game, play testing it, and then adding new elements into it. And then at the end, they have ChatGPT create a 2 to 3 sentence AI summary of these games. So one of the ones from yesterday was called Clueopoly. And this is an AI summary. So we make sure that the students have the AI create it, so the AI knows what is happening in these board games. The students aren't just telling us how their board game works. So with this one, in the strategic version of Clue, players use Monopoly money to enhance gameplay by purchasing clues, bribing others, for information and gaining extra turns. They can make accusations by paying a fee, adding excitement and risk, while incorrect guesses result in a monetary penalty. So that was the first example I chose, and the second one was called Quest for the Flag, which is a hybrid strategy game where players control hero pieces on a modular board aiming to complete quests and capture the opponent's flag. Players engage in battles, navigate different terrains, and use unique abilities to gain advantages while exploring the fantasy realm. Victory is achieved by either capturing the opponent's flag or completing a set number of quests, blending tactical depth with adventure elements. So we had 12 games created yesterday, and what was so interesting is all 12 of them were so vastly different than one another. I don't think any game used the same sort of base game to build off of. So this is just 2 examples. We have many more already, but I thought I'd share 2 because I thought they were so neat. Where and how can faculty sign up and schedule a class session? I will drop a link in the chat once I kick this over to the next presenter, which now we're going to move on and talk about AI enhanced pedagogy, and Jesse is going to cover that.
Thanks, Zach, and hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm on the phone, so I'll try to speak loudly. It's a little bit of a different input. I saw the thumbs up, so I think we're good. So the AI-enhanced pedagogy provost endorsement is something we've been talking about all summer. We've been saying it's coming, and the events that you attend related to AI are going to count towards it. And it has launched. It became live and open at the beginning of September. So we opened this endorsement. People who want to spend this fall working on their AI exploration and professional development. So you're already coming to things like AI Horizons and want to count this towards an endorsement, can start just tracking their activities, and we have created a pathway to do that. I'm going to put a link in the chat here, and this goes to the web page. It's going to say similar things that are on the slide, but that way you have access to it afterwards. And between now and the end of the year, the way the endorsement works is you'll need to attend 7 hours of Penn State AI-focused events. So things outside of Penn State we're not counting because part of the requirements are that there's peer interaction and as well as reflection, but it needs to be within Penn State and AI-focused. You'll have 3 activities, 2 reflective activities. One is an activity markup, so showing how you've integrated AI into an activity, whether it's instructions on AI use, whether it's limited or allowed in particular ways. You'll need to mark up an activity. One is a reflection post in Teams that kind of just summarizes points that you've collected over the semester. And then finally, by the end of the year, so end of December this year, you'll want to create a philosophy video, a video that could be shared with students, with colleagues. So those are the deliverables for the endorsement. And then people who submit those items into a Canvas course, everything needs to be tracked and collected in Canvas. The names will be sent in early January, at the beginning of next year, to have those endorsements show up in either Workday for staff or activity insights for faculty. And that way, for your departments, or you'll be identified as an expert, and we can start to scale our expertise throughout the university. So enrollment is open for this endorsement through Monday. We have about 3 or 4 more days, and then we're going to close for the fall, just because after that point it's going to be pretty difficult to reach that 7 hours of AI-focused events. So have a look at the website, see if it will work with your calendar this year, and now it's shared in the chat. All right, and look forward to seeing you at more events this year. Thanks for the chance to share, Zach. Pass it back to you.
Thanks, Jesse. Okay, so the next one we have is the Fall Semester AI Prompt Challenge, and that will be presented by Elizabeth Park.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, is it okay if I share my screen? There we go. I think I just sent a request, and then I could share. Great. Okay. Perfect. So, hi everyone. I'm Elizabeth Park. I take care of the York campus and the OVPCC. And this is an invitation to join our AI prompt challenge. So, the challenge is a weekly invitation to get into Copilot and to try one prompt. So, we will send you an email that has a prompt related to course design, student support, things that you do as a faculty member. And you'd have a chance to edit those to fit your class or your needs, and then pop and just practice once a week. If you want to, you can share how that went with other faculty who are a part of the prompt. We have 80 something participants already. So you would be able to share that, what worked, how you edited it. And there's a team space that's connected. So I have to say this summer we did a similar prompt challenge. We had over 140 people in the team space, and it was such a community. I felt like people were really sharing what was frustrating or what was surprising. So it was a great space. This is designed to be very low stakes, so you can pick and choose which prompts you try. You don't have to do all of them. If you want to earn a digital badge, you could do 6 of the 8 challenges. So the challenge runs for 8 weeks total. You could do 6 of those and participate a little bit in the team space. Then you can earn a digital badge, and that would also go towards the TLT, the AI Provost Endorsement program. So the challenge actually started this week, but we wanted to extend the registration. We know that there are lots of people in AI Horizons who may be interested. So if you would like to join us, there's already 80 folks in there. Please sign up today. I know that's a really quick turnaround, but it's a short form. So if you sign up today, we can get you caught up for this week, and then it'll run for the next 8 weeks. And I'll go ahead and put that link in. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And if there are any questions for any one of these announcements, please just drop them in chat and we can answer them there, or at the end here, we can address them as well. So the next one we have is Amy's going to talk about Faculty Engagement Awards.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Amy Kunz. I'm an instructional designer within Teaching and Learning with Technology. And this program is actually closed, but we wanted to highlight some of the work that many of you are doing who are even on the call today. So the Faculty Engagement Awards are held annually around a theme. The theme is different every single year. And this year, well, it's focused around generative AI. So every time we offer it, it's an experiential investigation and collaboration with TLT. It's faculty driven, so there's faculty meetups, there's consultations and support, and we share the findings both at TLT Symposium, and each participant is requested to create a brief, small report. And so they also get some type of technology, and this time it was a ChatGPT Teams license through May of this year. And so our current theme is faculty perspectives of generative AI for instructional use and productivity. So assisting in instructional design, course planning and content delivery, and trying to, knowing that we have a lot of things on our plate, how can we be productive to allow some time and space so we're not burned out? And so while it's faculty focused, we did have some sidebar conversations about student experiences and student assignments. And so we always are welcome to do that. So the current cohort makeup is 13 faculty that represent 7 campuses and 3 colleges. We have 1 who's involved in scholarship of teaching and learning research. We also have a Microsoft Teams space to collaborate, and we have cohort meetups and small group synchronous discussions. And so I'm going to quickly showcase, some of them are here today, including Betsy Campbell, Kyle, Sue, Stephanie Gresh, Michelle Kasich, and I did see Seth, who's here. And so I'll put that in the chat. So if I didn't mention you and you are here, please go ahead and chime in. And we do have a news article of the participants for you to check on out. And so some examples of things that we talked about is to get feedback on instructional material, what's unclear about instructions given to students. Can you put this into simpler terms? There are some who are doing it for research, including streamlining data analysis. and using generative AI research for teaching. Some of those are teaching in the shared courses that are geographically dispersed campuses connecting together. So how to engage students that are geographically dispersed and connected through Zoom conferencing. And then some of the sidebar conversations for students, including general incorporation of prompting and relevancy for our students. And one thing that I really liked is focusing on that metacognition. So if students used AI in assignment, for them to be guided for reflection on how AI was used, if it produced new questions or new ideas, and how do they see it relate to their discipline. So next year's Faculty Engagement Award, we don't know what the theme will be. The call will be in February, but maybe some who are in the current cohort could be presenting their work to this group later on. So I'll put the website in the chat. And is there any questions? No?
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Perfect. Okay. So our final mini announcements will be the Copilot learning path, and that will be presented by Catherine Esposito from ITLD.
Thanks so much, Jack. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. So hi, everybody. My name is Catherine, and I'm here with Blake. We're both from IT Learning and Development. And we just wanted to take this opportunity to share with you a resource that we've been working on, which is our Copilot learning path. So we know that there's a lot of resources out there on different AI tools. So our learning path is basically a curated collection of the most important resources to help you navigate through Copilot. So it's housed in Canvas, if you're familiar with some of our other learning paths. I'm just going to walk you through just for a second here, just to show you what it's like. We have just the first module, which is just some basic logistics, and then we have two main modules. One is on understanding Copilot, which has some important information. There's some confusion. There's different types and versions of Copilot, which are confusingly named Microsoft Copilot and then Copilot for Microsoft. And those correspond to the free and then the subscription-based versions. So you can just take a look, read more about that, and learn which one is best for you. And then we have another module, which is on getting started with Copilot. And that walks you through how to access Copilot, depending on which resource that you have, if you have the paid or the subscription. And it also walks you through, there's a KB article that we created, which walks you through the interface of Copilot and what that looks like. But before I jump off, I just wanted to share with you that there is an unpublished module still in our learning path, which is what can I do with Copilot? And that's where we'd like to ask you for your help and your feedback. So we're interested in hearing about the ways that you, whether you're faculty, students, or staff, use Copilot. And we'd like to take this opportunity to publish a module in the learning path where we showcase a number of different ways that you are using Copilot here in Penn State. And this could actually go in conjunction with Elizabeth's announcement of the prompt challenge as well. So that's a kind of neat opportunity to take advantage of. So if you would like to share with us and then perhaps be featured, you could remain anonymous, or we could feature you somehow in this learning path about the different kind of innovative and creative ways that you're using Copilot in your work at Penn State. We'd love to hear from you. We'll put our contact information in the Teams channel, and that way you can get in touch with us to share with us. So thanks so much. And thanks, Zach, for the opportunity to share.
Awesome, absolutely. And we do have one question from Renee. Do all PSU employees have access to this course for Copilot?
Yes, so you should have access, and I could send the link in the chat right now, and I'll also send it in the Teams when I put that announcement. But yes, everyone has access to it.
Awesome, thanks. And I will also be curating all the links that we shared in chat today, and I will post a whole list of all the links for everyone in Teams. Awesome, so as you can see, so many great things happening at Penn State around AI. Those were just a couple of the ones that we curated for today. If you want to share something in the next AI Horizons, please reach out to me or drop that in the AI Horizons idea vault so we can get you on the agenda. And if you have any questions, let's continue to chat in the Zoom chat, or we can continue in the team space afterwards. But now we have Dr. Ben Lear, who is a professor of chemistry, and he's going to share with us today how he's using ChatGPT 4.0 to teach the design of data visualizations. Dr. Ben Lear?
Yep, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me out. And let me just get things set up here. Okay, yeah, so I want to, I guess, share just a little bit about a course that I've designed that uses this, ChatGPT 4.0 to teach data visualizations. The course has existed now for maybe 5 years or so. And what I'll do is just try to give like a 10-minute overview of the motivation and what's going on with it, and sort of the general approach in the course itself, and then spend the rest of the time sort of demoing the way in which we use AI in the course. And like I said, it didn't start as an AI-based course. It started when there was sort of this university-wide call for interdisciplinary gen eds, and I thought it would be interesting to try to combine graphic design and science together. So this is a GAGN, and yeah, just focused on like trying to understand how we can articulate how best to design graphics for visualizing data. And the course number is SC103N. I'll also say, even though I know this is focused on the use of AI, if anyone is watching this and is interested in implementing it at a different campus, or even doing something together here at University Park, I'm very happy to also talk about that another time, sort of my experience and the resources that I have for this. Also, I'll just mention that I think Morgan Vincent, I saw her name here, and she's sort of sitting in on the class just for fun, and she can also give you impressions on how this works. And so the basic idea behind designing the course was that many different people across many different kinds of disciplines are going to be expected to interact with, and in many cases create, data visualizations. So you can find data visualizations like in the top left that are oriented towards finance. In the top right is politics. And so people who are working in those areas or reporting on those areas will interact with and make these sorts of data visualizations. I'm a scientist by training, and so things like in the bottom left are things that are a little bit more familiar to me. And then on the bottom right is sort of a dashboard that comes out of advertising and marketing and things like that. And so this is, you know, in science, this is certainly the lingua franca for us. But even outside of science, these sorts of data visualizations are widely used. And one of the issues is that there are tools for making them that allow people to create data visualizations, but we don't provide them training. You know, way back, it used to be that you would have like a department who needed to make data visualizations would have hired a graphic designer, and they could help in creating this. Now we have tools like Excel, which give you the ability to just click some buttons and get a plot, but you're not guaranteed that this representation is effective. And so how do we like think about that is the idea. And so the course has 3 main learning objectives. Again, just thinking about the course, where the idea is that I want people to be able to look at a data visualization like the one I'm showing here and articulate what's wrong with it. And like there's a lot wrong with this one. And then also articulate what you might do to fix those problems, and then be able to implement them themselves. And those are the 3 broad things. So yeah, thinking about why people don't do this now, or what's lacking, or maybe like why we don't teach this. And, you know, I'll just speak for myself. Growing up in science, like as an undergrad and a grad student, I was never given clear guidance on how to design data visualizations. Basically, I would have data and I would copy what I saw from my peers or what was in the literature without really any understanding about whether what I was, you know, sort of mimicking was a good idea or not. And I think the end result is that you go back and look at the papers I published early in my career and as a grad student, there's a lot of very poorly designed data visualizations in there. And so there's two main barriers. One is this, like none, at least in science, very few of us were trained. And so we can look at something like the examples that are shown here, all of which I would consider to be pretty poor data visualizations, but struggle to understand why. And one of the main issues is that we don't even have a language, really a cohesive language to describe what's going wrong and what we're trying to do. And without that language, it's hard to like focus your attention. And then this comes up when we work with ChatGPT, which of course has like a language-based interface. That if we can express what we want in terms of language, then it's easy to get these AI assistants to do what we would like. So one goal is really to develop a common language for understanding how to articulate design choices. And then the second, which is like even more directly solved by ChatGPT, is that it can be very challenging to find the space to teach how to make data visualizations, because if you use specialized software like what I'm showing here, this is a program called Views, and it's free, it's cross-platform, it's Python extensible, and I honestly think this is probably the best like GUI interface data visualization software that exists, in my opinion. And I used to teach the course out of this, but the problem is if you kind of just look at the interface, there's like all these buttons across the top. You have to know what they are. If I wanted to change something about these axes, there's all these different like sub menus that all have their each like a different thing that can be checked. And so a large part of this course became teaching people to navigate specialized software, which is at some level kind of a useful skill, but at another level, not a transferable skill. And so it's much more useful to give people a general skill on what they're trying to do than these like very highly specific. I'm less concerned about people knowing how to navigate the intricacies of a menu in a GUI interface than being able to express to somebody else why a particular figure is not working and how it might in general be fixed. And so it used to be that I would spend, a significant portion of the class, maybe 20% of this course was really focused on understanding how to use this software. And in the last few years, I've moved to ChatGPT, and I get those 20% of my time back to focus on design ideas instead, because I don't have to teach people to navigate these menus, as you'll see in the demonstration. I just have to have them understand how to express ideas back to an AI assistant. All right, and if there's any questions, feel free to interrupt or not, or let me know if there's questions that show up. I'm happy to stop anytime. This is not, you'll see, planned. So yeah. Okay, so ChatGPT, it used to be 4, now it's 4.0, or 4, yeah. And it helps us address that. And so solution one, and I'll just run through this very quick so you can understand sort of the philosophy behind the course, is to develop a simple language. And so we spend at least one class a week developing new ideas about the language of graphic design. And this would be an example from one of the days where we would introduce a couple ideas and then use them in the context of data visualization. And so what we're looking at here is a data visualization where I have shown the value of basically taking $1 and investing it every year for the person who is in the median year of a different generation. So we have the last generation, the greatest, the boomers, Gen X, Gen Y. And this would be the value of those investments in the stock market, in part because people, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to think about whether different generations have had different economic situations, at least in the stock market, since a large amount of wealth is created there. This is the default that you would get out of this Views program that I was telling you, and there's like a lot of problems with it. And so what we would do is introduce ideas to articulate what's going on and why there are problems with it. And so in this course, one of the things is to pull out the like basic foundational principles of graphic design. I'm going to introduce those to you right now. So there's 3 of them: consistency and contrast, proximity and separation, and alignment. And we can just like go through them once each and make a much better plot as a result. So consistency and contrast is the consistency part says like unless you have something that you want to look very different, you should make everything look the same. So one of the problems with this plot is that I have 5 different colors. This is the default because the program is trying to make it so that you can tell everything apart. But the problem is now there's no focus. You're making somebody's brain try to think like, what's important here? Why are there so many different issues? Why are there so many different colors? And so this says just like start with a blank slate. Start with everything looking as simple and as uniform as we possibly can. And then we can use contrast as a tool to draw attention and tell people what's important. So that says, okay, now that we have everything looking the same, contrast says, think of the things you want to stand out, make that look very different. So for this, you have to understand a story. What am I trying to claim about the data? And for instance, we might focus on the fact that the boomers enjoyed the best economy. That was something that you saw before. And so the first step is to make the data stand out. So you give the data some color so that you can see that is different than the axes that we had before. Another trick that's done in a lot of modern data visualizations is that the axes are grayed out so that they don't have as much contrast. Like the highest contrast you can have is black on white. And so you take the axes and gray them out. That lets the data stand out more. But then you think like, I want the boomers to stand out, and you just make it look very different than everything else. Something like bolder and orange and a different shape. And now somebody looking at this will immediately know that like there's something of interest about the boomers. And if we decide not to distinguish the others, then we can simplify the graph by getting rid of some of these labels. Okay. The next step is proximity and separation. It's a simple idea, but we'll see. Well, anyway, it's a simple idea. Things that we want to be associated with each other should be placed next to each other. Things that we want to be separated from one another, we should separate them from one another. All right. Good. So this is a thing that fails in a lot of default data visualizations as well because of this legend. So the problem is that I want people to associate this word boomers with the orange thing. So I put an orange thing next to it, fine. But I'm trying to make them associate it with the thing that's over here. And so attention is split back and forth. It would be much better, instead of having this sort of like spatial separation that is enforced by this legend, to just put the word next to the thing it labels. And you can even make it more uniform by adding some sort of like, let's call it color proximity. And somebody walking in and seeing this for the first time will have no problem understanding that like the orange word that's sitting next to the orange line is labeling the orange line. So we don't need this legend that splits attention back and forth. We just use proximity and separation. Okay. And then alignment basically says if you put things on a page, it should have some sort of relationship to another thing that's on the page. We have these two labels that have no clear alignment. You could try to make some sort of alignment like this. But another thing to think about is that this exists on a page that has strong like baselines and things like this associated with the text. And then we don't have alignment between the graph and those lines. And so if we pay attention to this, you can create a data visualization that just feels much more firmly in place. Okay. Yeah, this is the general idea. And then I think like looking at something like this, comparing the plot on the right to the plot on the left, hopefully we can all agree that the one on the right tells a more clear story in terms of what the focus is and where we want people's attention. Okay, so that's the general philosophy, is students need to like look at data, decide what they're trying to make the data say, or what component about this data are they trying to draw out for the user. And then they need to create a design using the rules and principles of graphic design to communicate that message as effectively as possible. And so rather than spending time focusing on what buttons to push, we can use ChatGPT, and the focus becomes much more on what am I trying to claim? How do I demonstrate this and express that? So I just want to give a demo of how I use this. I saw there was some like notes. Okay, so yeah, okay, then I'm not seeing anything that I need to respond to before we go on, but let me know. All right, so for instance, since we're talking about the stock market, we could look at this data here. This data is the year in returns from the S&P 500. You know, if you wanted to, you can make a plot here in Excel, but there's no reason to do that, because if you have ChatGPT 4.0, the paid version, it can both analyze uploaded files and write code and execute that code. So what I could do is I could take this file and just drop it in to this interface, and then it can analyze it. So I could say, here is data of the S&P 500 returns each year. I'm not going to give it any sort of direction, make a plot of this. And what you'll see is that it's going to like come up with this analyzing. So again, I don't know how much experience there is in here with ChatGPT 4.0. So please let me know if I'm going too quick or too slow. But it has read the file and given me like a short table of it. And then when it came up with this analyzing, what it's doing is it's writing code. And in the case of the paid version, it is also then executing that code and giving me back the result. So now I have this plot. And what I could do is look at this plot and decide, is there anything else about this plot that I would like to change? Is there something about this data that I would like to highlight or transform? Because, you know, I can use this to analyze the data further. Okay, so I don't know. This is the average returns. To me, it's kind of interesting. I think people are more interested in wealth generation. And so you can ask it to like work with this data. So I could say instead, make a plot of the value of an account that invests $1 each year for the history of this index. And then it will behind the scenes write code to like give me what would have happened if I had invested money. Now, if you want to see what's happening behind the scenes, you can always click on this little button here. And whenever it's saying analyzing and writing code, it will show you the code that it's using. ChatGPT, when it's plotting things, really only has access to the matplotlib and like matplotlib family of libraries. I really wish it had Plotly, because I think that's, in my opinion, much better. But it's using matplotlib. So if you want to understand even in greater detail how to give it instructions, you can read up on the matplotlib library, though you don't actually need to. Okay, so now I have this like value over time. And maybe I think that's more appealing. I can think about like where in this data visualization am I like, for instance, lacking consistency, lacking contrast, have elements that I don't need. So for instance, just looking at this, I might think to myself, and I guess I can make it bigger. All right, maybe I don't need the individual points. Like it feels busy to me to have these individual points divided by the lines. So I can start giving this instructions like refine this plot. Well, I'll just leave the typo in. Refine this plot and say like remove the marker, but keep the lines. Let's like remove the grid lines. I in general don't think the grid lines add much. And then this is a thing that can distract. It's like added information that is not really useful. And so it competes with like visual attention with the data itself. Probably we don't need to have the year written at the bottom because most people looking at this will understand that this is year by year what's going on with the S&P 500. This is account value. It's kind of hard to read those numbers. So let's say remove, if anybody has other ideas, type them in and we'll change it in response. Remove the title year from the axis, change the y-axis tick mark labels to be in units of 1,000. So we'll say I want it like to have a K there and add a $sign in front. And then if we do that, we can remove the title on the y-axis. And so now I've given it some ideas on like how I want to refine this. And this is what students will do. They'll just think about like what's present, what's not, what do I want to draw out. The way that the assignments work then is that they find data eventually. I mean, like eventually we get to the point where they find their own data. They make these sorts of data visualizations. They show me the history of the chat that they've been using, and then they provide like justifications for the choices that they're making. Okay. So now we have a new line chart, and you can see that it's removed the year, it's removed the grid lines, it's given us more clear labeling on the left-hand side, it's removed the markers. And so then I could keep thinking like, okay, what else would I want to have happen here? That part's nice. I just want to show that you can do even more in terms of analysis. And so I'm going to go back to the yearly returns and say, go back to the yearly returns and make a histogram of it. And so now I'm asking it not only, before I was asking it to like project what would happen to the growth rate. Now I'm telling it, I want you to go back to this data and show me a histogram. And the reason I want to do this is because, you'll get a histogram out. I have some data. If I wanted to know something about this distribution, maybe I would try to fit it to something like a normal curve or a Gaussian. So I could say fit a Gaussian curve to this data and show the result. And then what we'll see is that we will create a new element that gets added to this plot. And then we could keep asking for refinements on that. How do I best show what this Gaussian fit looks like? How do I like maybe get out information from it, right? So this fit will naturally have things like the mean and the standard deviation. Right now, there's a lot of problems with this chart. Again, we have grid lines I don't really like. I don't like these color choices at all. I don't like that the labeling is up here, that it says mu instead of using the Greek letter mu. All of this are things that you can just include in the chat. Okay, yeah, and there's a question, do I do this live with my students? Yeah, so we just started using ChatGPT to actually make this. What we did was last Friday for students who wanted guidance on how to do this, that was the class activity. So they came in and we just had data that everybody had in common. And we went through this process of how to do this, how to generate these plots. And then it ends with something like this. Like, let's imagine you're never gonna, in my experience, you will never get ChatGPT to give you like the world's most beautifully formatted plot. But instead, you can get it like most of the way there. And if you're happy with it, which I am not, but let's imagine I was happy with this. I could say, give me this plot as a .svg file. And then what it'll do is it'll write code that will produce an SVG file, so a scalable vector graphics file. I can download it. And the reason to do that is that the students, by virtue of being at Penn State campus, have access to programs like Illustrator that can directly edit SVG files. So I can click on this, I can download this particular one. Yeah, okay, so there's a question about Copilot. The issue, and the reason we use ChatGPT, the paid version, Copilot will write code, just like the free version of ChatGPT will write code. And so if you have students that are comfortable taking that code and then running it on their own, this works fine. I'm trying to work with students who I don't want them to have to deal with that sort of interface. And so I want something that's like an all-in-one solution. If if Penn State were to provide a backend that would allow execution of the code that Copilot is generating, then it would be fine. It would work exactly the same way. Yep. So students are, and then students are using the paid version. They buy a license. Yeah, that's right. So there's no book for this course because there's no book that exists that I think is reasonable for teaching this. And so the only price associated with the course is 3 months of a ChatGPT subscription. They also don't absolutely have to use it. If they're comfortable coding, it's fine. This is just for people who want to interact with AI and have it generate these plots for them. Yeah, you can use Seaborn. In fact, it sometimes can use Seaborn anyway. Plotly, you can. It just can't execute it because the backend that's executing the code does not have Plotly installed. Yeah. Yeah, so you could do Google. Yeah, so you can use Google Colab. You can have Copilot in there. Well, they also have access to Copilot within GitHub, which is a fine solution as well. Let me think about how to. If you do this, you still run into a problem though, where like students will need to troubleshoot code. Whereas in this version of usage, if ChatGPT encounters an error in the code, it will troubleshoot it itself. And so you basically will always either get an answer that is the output that you want, or an explanation of why it's unable to do it in this environment. So hopeful that students understand that data used are not validated. Yeah, of course. So we talk about, I mean, like a part of introducing ChatGPT as a tool is explaining to them sort of the underlying technology and the fact that this is like all probabilistic. And so even when it's writing code and executing code and it gives you an answer, it may not be the right answer. Isn't this graphic design? I'm not sure maybe there's, well, I don't know. I lost the question. Isn't this graphic design? I mean, it definitely is graphic design. And so you're seeing this component of it. The other part of the course is talking about if you have data, what are you looking for? So for instance, probably tomorrow's lecture, we talk about some basic things like mean, median, mode, of course, but we talk about like geometric means. We talk about like why you would use quantiles versus like standard deviation. We'll eventually talk about things like these normal distributions and log normal distributions. We'll talk about like a little bit about like gamma distributions and things like this too, right? So, and then we've already had lectures that talk about how do you find data? How do you know whether this data is something that's like valid or not? What sort of organizations gather data? How do you like cite data? Things like that. Why not use Excel? That's a good question. I have students that have asked in the past about Excel. I've taught the course before using Excel, with the understanding that many students are going to use Excel as a tool later in their life. So the reason is that the course is not, this is just my personal approach. The course is not focused on teaching a specific tool. It's teaching transferable skills. And so the less time I can spend on understanding how to navigate a menu, and the more time that I can spend on understanding how to implement fundamental principles of data analysis and fundamental principles of graphic design, the better off it is. So that's Excel. You can make reasonable looking plots. There are some things you cannot do in Excel, but yeah, by and large, you can do a lot in it. To really fine tune a plot requires a lot of steps and a lot of work. And so that's just not something, again, that I'm necessarily interested in focus on. Maybe did you show everything you showed us that we need to understand the data or visualization may be incorrect? Yeah, so I guess in this, showing it to people here, I didn't emphasize this, showing this to students in the class, yes. So you have to be skeptical about what's being returned. I will say, I have yet to see, this is just me personally, I have yet to see ChatGPT make a mistake in this sort of approach. Binning data, it generally will not make a mistake, in my opinion, binning data. It doesn't mean that it can't. And so you always have to have, this is the same thing, you know, when you teach people, I teach chemistry as well. So teaching chemistry is not just teaching people to apply formulas, but understanding that when you try to apply this formula, what is the answer you get? And does that answer make any sense? Because people will misapply formulas. And so ChatGPT will misapply formulas, people will misapply formulas. And so it's always this, like, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're seeing, whether it's been generated by ChatGPT or someone else, you always have to have this like skepticism about, does this make sense? Does this meet the expectations that I have? So that's something we talk about. If you repeat the prompt, we'll give you the same visual output, disregarding color and choices. In this case, yeah, probably would. We can try that real quick. So let's just go back. So go back to the year and returns. I'm just going to combine these two things real quick. Also fit that to a Gaussian. It will make small stylistic choices, also depending on the initial guess and exactly how flat the I'm blanking now on the name, but basically, you know, like how steep this optimization curve is for the minimizing the sum of squares. You might get slightly different results from the mu and the standard deviation. Yeah. I've never had it noticed that I asked it to do the same thing. All right. Let's see. So for traceability, I mean, how do we maintain traceability? The nice thing is, I would say in terms of traceability is this, like, I know exactly what it did. All right, here's the code. So if I want to know how it did this analysis, I know exactly how it did this analysis. Yeah, so that's sort of like traceability. If different users enter the same prompt, will they get different outcomes? They will get different styles, but they will get largely the same answer. So yeah. Data privacy, if you want to use this for research, yeah. So I have IRB for some of this. I'm still getting IRB for if I want to do research. Yeah, it's just a process. It's the standard navigating the IRB stuff. Data privacy, I mean, we do have a discussion with the students that, like, OpenAI makes a claim that in the paid version for things like this, the data that you upload will not be used to train models in the future. Personally, I would not give this anything that I would not want out training a model or on the internet. That's just my opinion. So I try to be cautious myself. The students generally are not, it is very rare for me to encounter someone who's using data that is somehow data that is sensitive. The vast majority of students, because we have a discussion on where to go to find data, will be using publicly available data that was probably already used in the training of ChatGPT. So yeah. But you'll see things that are like, here's my like budget, my personal like monthly budget. I mean, like, again, I might not put that on there. It's probably not the end of the world, but it's something students need to be aware of for sure. Again, it's the same idea of like being cautious about how you use these tools. Yeah, I don't know if there are any other questions. This SVG. Let's just open this real quick in Adobe Illustrator, just to like, if you download the scalable, yeah. If I did the same thing, well, we could try it real quick as Illustrator loads. So let's get a new prompt. Something else that I didn't maybe have time to talk about is we're starting to talk about how to make custom GPTs. And so like this is one that's being developed that is essentially a style sheet for students so that it gives them a plot that's similar to what they want out of the gate. And so I don't know if it's worthwhile seeing that. Here's Illustrator. Maybe I'll do that just so here's Illustrator. I'll just show real quick. Like if I go in, I now have access to like individual components about this plot. So like, whoops. Here's like this line. I could like delete the line or move it around, change its color. And so that part is also very convenient for like super fine tuning stuff. Okay. Yeah, last thing. So let's do, I'm just going to pull this up. It doesn't, well, you'll see what happens. Okay. I'm just going to drag in the data. We'll just start with the histogram. So please, yeah, you don't have to be so polite. Make a histogram of the returns column data and fit it to a Gaussian. And results. Okay. Make the plot as a presentation. So in this custom GPT, I've given it a style, like basically some idea on styles that I would like. And I've given it keywords so that it has multiple different styles, whether I'm trying to make something for a presentation, whether I'm trying to make something for a publication, whether I'm making something for like a flyer. These all have slightly different things. Yeah, so let's just see real quick about what it gives us. And I guess that'll be all the time we have. But it's been an interesting experience. I think in general, students have really liked it. They're a little bit more savvy this year. When I did this last year, not many people in the course had ever really interacted with any AI tool at all. And their only experience had been with like it being viewed in a very combative manner where, they were told like this was cheating for writing or something like that. There we go. All right, so slightly different style. I would say this is very similar results here. And like under a different GPT that I created starting fresh. And so let's just go back real quick. So that's 12.25, 19.54. So yeah, pretty much the same. In general, this sort of like analysis, ChatGPT is very good at because like the things is when it's writing code, there's just like the overwhelming preponderance of code is sort of correct that it was trained on. And so it does a very good job on that. Cool. Yeah, so the last thing I'll say is, I'm happy to talk more if people have questions about my experiences, either with the course or this. I do think like it's so easy to jump in that you could incorporate this into other courses as even just a part of the course and totally sidestep the need to teach people how to use specialized software and focus much more on like how to draw out stories for whatever particular set of data you typically work with. And that's quite nice. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity to show you this. Cool.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Lear. That was, I thought, very informative and a great presentation. We are at time, so I do want to be respectful. If anybody has to jump off, feel free to jump off. The recording of this will be posted in AI Horizons in the Teams channel, as well as a list of all the links that we shared earlier. And if you do have further questions for Dr. Lear, please continue the conversation in AI Horizons in the Teams chat, or reach out to myself or Dr. Lear. We can certainly send those questions and connect you with him. Without further ado, thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and September's AI Horizons is commenced.